Hey guys, welcome to my video. My name is Bria and this is Tweety Bird. Today I'm going to be showing you how I hand feed Tweety Bird and answering a few common questions. If you have any questions on how to feed a bird, please comment them down below this video because there's lots of information out there in the online space and I don't find some of it is really applicable to every single type of bird. Tweety here is a rare type of finch in the US. I think it's a she, is a parrot finch, a Forbes Parrot Finch, and she is today 2 weeks old. She's been doing really well. I have hand fed her from when she was an egg. So she hatched from the egg, I've hand fed her entire life, and as you can tell, she's very friendly. And she loves pets, but they do make her beg for food. Hi, baby. I know, baby.
Here's how I mix Tweetie's formula. I grab a mug and I fill it with filtered water about halfway. Then I throw it in the microwave for about 30 seconds to heat it to be just lukewarm and not too hot. Next, I'll take a scoop of formula and then I'll add the lukewarm water to the formula according to the instructions, according to the age of the bird, and mix it all together. I mix it until it becomes soupy so that I can easily suck it up into the syringe that I'm using. In this video, you're going to see me use a syringe with a soft tip that's a crop needle.
I have formula that I mixed for her here, and I'm going to give her a little feeding. Let's see if you guys can see what I do here. Oh no, Tweety! Look this way, baby girl. Ready? There you go, baby.
Notice how I insert the crop needle down to the right of the bird into the crop directly through the throat.
And she's still gonna beg after I feed her, but you don't want to overfeed them. So comes to question number 1 that I see asked a lot online, is how often to feed the baby bird. I've seen some videos and blogs out there that say you need to feed them every hour, on the hour. This is true, but also not true. I'm going to answer these questions honestly today from my own experience successfully raising this chick to 2 weeks old. So yes and no, you should feed them every hour. I was feeding her every hour on the hour, but sometimes her crop was just too full to eat again the next hour. And there were many days, especially early on in her first week, I think almost every day, I skipped a feeding and waited 2 hours just because the crop was too full. And if I were to feed her when the crop was already full, she would regurgitate the food, maybe choke on it and breathe it in and die. So I didn't want that. I really listened to her, and they say in some blogs and videos as well that you should only feed them when they're begging. I would say this is true when they're younger. When they get older, it's different, because as she's gotten older, she's become very vocal, and when she begs, sometimes she doesn't stop begging or realize she's full for quite a while. She was actually really good this time. But she's not always like this, trust me. Sometimes she goes on begging for like 10 minutes, even though I shut her in the incubator.
You're crazy. You're crazy. I already fed you.
And I put her away. Look, she's still doing it. She's still doing it. You're looking at me. What are you looking at me for? You can see her crop is full. I know that I'm not supposed to feed her more than this or she will regurgitate it, but she will keep trying to get food from me. And look, I bet you if I pet, yep, I know, she wants food. Once she hit like the 1.5 week mark, she just kept begging no matter how full she was. And I think that this is where the information can become dangerous of you have to feed them every hour. Because if you feed them every hour and their crop is already full, you could overextend the crop could stop working properly, and they could regurgitate their food and die. So from my experience, feeding her up to like the first 1.5 weeks, I fed her whenever she begged, but there were some feedings where I was feeding every hour and she didn't want to eat, so I let it go. Sometimes when it got to like the last feeding or 2 of the night, her crop was already really full, so I put her to bed early. It really went based on how her crop looked and how she was acting. You have to react to each bird's body language that you're hand raising. You can't just apply a one-rule-fits-all type of thing to any living animal in my experience and in my opinion, because then you're going to have problems if you try to force feed them every hour and you're worried about them sticking to a schedule. I made this mistake the first time I was hand feeding earlier on. She's not the first chick I've hand raised. I used to be really worried that they weren't eating enough, which I think is a very maternal instinct. Like, you want the baby to be eating enough. You're worried that if they're not eating enough, then they won't grow properly, because let's think about it, right? In the first week, their bodies are doing all their organ development. This baby, I have a dummy egg to show you the egg that she came out of, and I'll show you the size difference. She was doubling in size like every few days. So you really want to make sure they're getting the right nutrition, and I used to be worried that if I didn't feed enough, even if the crop was full, if they didn't eat every hour, that they wouldn't grow. This is false. This is not true. Tweetie skipped feeding. Sometimes she went to bed earlier. I woke up late, and she was just fine. Now, of course, you want to try to stick to a schedule of every hour or so and like be there to consistently feed them if they want to be fed. But if you skip a feeding, they're not going to die. If you wake up an hour late or put them to bed an hour early, they're not going to die. And this was a big misconception I had when I first started hand raising birds, and I wanted to just ease your minds a little bit. They are fragile for sure, and they're difficult to hand raise for sure, but they're also more resilient and stronger than you would think. Look at my girl. Look at her. She's so cute. She's so cute. Good girl. So this is the size of the egg that Tweetie hatched out of. It's actually, I think, a little bit bigger. This is a dummy egg, and I use them to put in the nest to replace eggs that are infertile, or when the parents are not sitting on the eggs properly and incubating properly, then I will put these in and just hand raise the eggs myself, just because I don't like to lose eggs. I don't like to lose babies for no reason. Sometimes first-time parents make a mistake, but that's another video. Like I said before, if you have questions about how to hand raise or raise baby chicks, I know I'm only covering hand feeding in this video, but I will be doing other videos on every topic, such as temperature and other things on how to keep these baby chicks alive and how to help them thrive. So this is the egg, and this is my Tweetie. Let's put it beside her. Look how small that egg is compared to the bird now. You can imagine her growth in the first week and a half. No more begging, Tweetie. No. You don't need any more food, baby. You're full. I'll feed you again soon. She does not stop begging, I'm telling you guys. And also, I've noticed that as she's gotten older, again, this is something where you have to really monitor the chicks and adjust the feedings. Sometimes she eats every 45 minutes. I know some people feed less often as they get older. I take it by, I feed when the crop is close to empty. Whenever that is that every 45 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour. I've seen blogs and videos say feed every half hour, feed every hour. You really have to take it by the chick. Visually assess how the crop is. How full is it? And go from there. That's really the only metric you can use if you want to be successful hand raising a chick and you want to feed them consistently. Now, you still want to feed them consistently, like I said before. Now let's talk about the tools and the formulas that I use to raise finch chicks and other types of baby birds. So there are two syringes that I've used throughout the process of raising Tweetie. This syringe with a soft tip for crop feeding, and this syringe that has a really small mouth. I know you can't really see it, but it's tiny, because when finches hatch, they are incredibly small, and it is hard to find a tool that has a tip that is small enough for their mouth. I know this looks small, but trust me, it's not nearly small enough. So you can grab these dental syringes for really cheap on Amazon. I will link them somewhere around this video. And this is actually very expensive. So if you don't intend on directly crop feeding, you don't need this. I have bought this just because over the years I wanted to directly crop feed. It is easier, but it does take practice. You can easily bruise the crop. I'm going to pop up a picture of me crop feeding Tweetie bird right here so you can see what crop feeding is. I find crop feeding only really works with such small finches after like the first week and a half, because when they're smaller than that, you can't get a tube down into their crop. They're just so small. So I actually had to use this syringe to just put little drops of food in her mouth until she was big enough for me to put the syringe all the way down her throat. You've got to be careful with this one though, because it is hard plastic on the tip, so you don't want to hurt their little thin, stretchy skin with the tip of the syringe. So just be really careful, and I would not recommend trying to crop feed with this just because of how hard the tip is. But it's great if you want to just feed them right into the mouth, which you can totally do for their whole life. As for formulas, I have used two as well. in my experience raising finches, I have raised finches from young to adult on this exact hand feeding formula by Katie. I find this is more commercially available. You can get it on Amazon. Again, I'll link it somewhere around this video. And this time around raising Tweetie, I tried the Serenus crop milk. Serenus, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Serenus crop milk. And then after a week on this, because this is honestly really small and she went through a whole thing of this on her own, again, very expensive. And then I switched to this hand feeding formula for wild baby birds. I honestly found the experience with these the same. So this is definitely more affordable. I just wanted to try out the crop milk and the hand feeding formula to see if it would make much of a difference. She's an exotic finch as well. I was really nervous about doing right by her. I've never raised a Forbes finch before, so her colors are really vibrant. I wanted to make sure she had all the nutrition she needed, which is why I chose to use crop milk and a formula this time around, but I wouldn't say that you need to do this to be successful. I was just extra, and I spent a lot of money and invested into her setup before I knew that I was gonna have a clutch. You don't need to do this. If you wanna spend the money, then go ahead, but you can definitely do what I did with this formula and this syringe, and that's it, and they're affordable on Amazon. So let me know if you have any other questions when it comes to the technique of hand feeding baby birds or the materials, because I would love to answer them for you. I can't believe I almost forgot temperature of the formula. So there is this myth that I have seen on the internet over and over and over again. That formula has to be the exact body temperature of the bird, 98.5, 100, and you have to use a temperature thermometer, which I have, and I've done in the past to make sure that that formula is the exact same temperature as the bird, and you have to feed it at that temperature. I can tell you with 100% certainty that this is wrong. I used to do this, and it was so stressful. Trying to use a kettle to heat the water, and then I get it the right temperature, and then by the time I get it in the syringe, it would not be that temperature anymore. I'm freaking out because I was like, oh my god, it's not hot enough. So this time around, I didn't heat the formula very much. I would just take some filtered water, throw it in a mug for 30 seconds in the microwave, make it lukewarm to the touch, and feed it that way. And this has worked fine for the bird from day 2 after hatching, all the way up until week 2. You do not need to heat the formula to exactly 98.5. The bird will be fine. I find what's more crucial is actually the temperature around the bird, so brooding it at the exact right temperature. If the bird's body temperature is maintained, then it's able to heat that formula and properly digest it. I have found that keeping the temperature around the bird is a lot more important than the temperature of the formula. That's my take on heating your formula to an exact temperature, and it's stressful. I don't think you need to do it. I think in the wild that the birds don't have microwaves and they don't have kettles and they're not heating it to their exact body temperature. There's no way they can keep it that temperature. It's just, it doesn't really make sense when you think about it. This is just my opinion. This is based on what I've done. But I have successfully raised a very hard to raise, rare exotic finch from the egg without heating the formula to 98.5. So if I can do it, you can do it too.